Okay, so now is our time to do our pre-assembly. And I actually already did it, and for some reason I had a little issue with the recording. So I happen to know that you're going to have a really pretty flower after this video. And then we're going to do the future zhuzhing. So what I mean by pre-assembly is we're just going to be putting together right now the petals and the middle bits. Now I'm using a different app on this thing, and I'm hoping it'll work out okay. These crossed fingers. So anyhow, we're going to get this going, and then next one we'll be talking about what's happening on the bottom here, because mostly we're going to kind of free-form the bottom in a way. So I want to see what the top looks like first. So let's get that guy done. So here's some, sorry, I'm losing my voice a little bit. Sorry, everyone. So here's some 16 gauge, 18-inch wire. You don't need it to be 18 inches. In fact, if it's like a pain in the neck to use, cut it off to what you think it's going to be. I always kind of keep with the 18 inches until the end. Now, I'm using 3, but you can use 2. I'm using 3, which is pretty sturdy. This is a 3 wrap right here, so this is what it looks like. So it's not like huge and horrible too much, but definitely substantial. It still has some flexibility to it, though, so that's good. I can still bend it back and forth. But that, again, it's because it's going to be a pretty heavy flower. So I would kind of recommend 3, but if you feel uncomfortable that's too clunky, then do 2, depending on what you're going to do with it. But it's a heavy-headed flower. Not as bad as my other ones I used to make. Those would go, if I didn't do them in 3, they would have just fallen right off. Because there were so many petals. Like this guy here, where's he at? Oh, where's one of my old guys? Like this one. So many petals that if you had, did it with just 2, it probably would have just fallen right over. So this one we're doing with only 14 petals, so we can probably get by with 2. Again, I'd go with 3. Now, we're going to kind of lace them or like kind of lash them together. And you can do them with like maybe one of them at about, a quarter of an inch out, just to give you a little kind of a thinner spot to wrap those like center fringe around. Or you can do them all even. Sometimes I forget to do that. So I'm saying like stick one a little bit a quarter, or don't. And then just take some, some 30 gauge wire you have a lot of. I'm doing this for the second time. I had to totally dismantle the flower. And somehow that made me less organized. One would think I'd have things around. Let's see. So 30 gauge. I don't know. That's certainly not 30 gauge. I'll just use this guy right here just because it's here. This copper wire. You can use whatever. It's going to be coated up anyway. So use a 30 gauge, a pretty strong 30 gauge. What am I trying to say here? Trying to do it at the same time. That stainless steel wire, if you have it in 30 gauge or 32 gauge, that would work. That's really strong and thin. So again, you can leave a little nub out of the top, and then you want to kind of like, lash them together, so that they're, it's kind of an old fashioned word, huh? Lashing. So that they make like a little triangle, so that they're kind of evenly put together. Now, I'm going to pause this for a moment, and I'm trusting this new app to let me come back to you. Just because putting these together, doing this under the camera, I was going to make it really take forever. So let me pause for a moment. So you only want a really loose, like maybe half an inch or 3/4 of an inch separation between rows here. Just, just do it fast like this. If I weren't under a camera, just hold it and then like kind of spin it around like that, and just a couple seconds, and you should be done. Because we're just trying to get it to hold together. Wrap it a little bit around that bottom. Clip that thing off. It's just to hold it together. Okay. So now we got that. And now I know that I'm going to be using this for my center, which has kind of a sort of a really sort of off yellow, like muted golden center there. So I'm going to choose, let's say, go to the pile O floral tapes. I'm going to choose this tan one here. Now, if you don't have, a variety pack of floral tapes, just use the lightest green you have or whatever. I mean, if a little green shows through, that's kind of cute in a way too. Oh, I got to warn you, I'm doing this during the day. Normally I do them at night. So my dogs might bark if they, feel offended that a neighbor dog is, walking on the sidewalk in front of our house or something. They're a bit touchy about that. Now, so I'm going to wrap it starting from the bottom up. wrap it, and I go about, to about half the width, which is 1/4 of an inch of the tape past the top. And then I bend it down to get it kind of to be, so I see that there, and then I bring it back around. Right, kind of like you're swaddling it in a way. It's like sort of that swaddle or burrito feature, depending on which way your brain is going today. Swaddling, burrito, Okay, so you go a little bit past, bend it down, and then start wrapping downwards. And, go maybe 2-3 inches. Oh my goodness. Like I said, I had to do this all. I think I got frustrated with it, so I just threw everything down. Not really, but it seems like that. Where are my little crafty scissors? Sorry, I don't know why I'm losing my voice so much. That's obnoxious. Okay, so if you can find a nice tan, that's a handy one to get. If you're interested, Suzanne and I found a place. So if you put it on the Facebook group, we can maybe figure out the link. Because we were trying to track that down at one point. Because it's a handy color to have in your repertoire of floral tapes. So, one of us should remember where the heck we got it from. Okay, so now back to the matter at hand. Now, I told you, now I'm hoping this will, because look how kinky up my wire is, because I literally did the entire flower and had to undo it, which I'm a little scared it's going to bust, because thinner wire, when you undo it, it's not going to be happy at you. So, I also told you I was going to show you something that I did if you do have problem issues, right? Problem issues? Sorry for the barking. I'm hoping that he's lucky he's so cute. Rescue dogs, what are you going to do? And that's also why my fringe is kind of already a little bent up and fringy looking, because I already did the whole darn thing. Hang on a second. Let's see if... he seems to be calming down. Okay, so last time when I was doing this, I got a little overzealous and I busted the tail end off of this. Also, this champagne wire is pretty brittle. I got to remember that. So I busted the end off this thing, and so now I have no tail end for this particular unit. I did it in 2 units, and I busted the end off. Okay, hold on a second. Okay, so... and you can use this, actually, because this was so brittle, this actually broke in half, this one. And see, I repaired it. So it's all good to go now. It's one whole unit. And you can use the same method to do that. So if you break a fringe in half, go get your... Now, I'm going to use this 28 gauge silver wire because, I'll be honest, I don't trust that champagne wire anymore. We're no longer friends. So cut off about, 10 inches, 9 inches, whatever. And then, have a little end sticking out, maybe about, I know this is a little bit hard to see. Have a little end sticking out. Let me try to do it on top of this thing here, the lid of one of my bins, so you can see a little easier. Okay, and then go maybe about 7, 8 fringes back. I don't even know what I'm doing. And hold it down here, and hold it next to the bottom. And then just wrap it in. Every other one. Not every other one, around each one. Sorry, I shouldn't say every other one. So in between each fringe, I'm just twisting it and looping it around and basically just kind of stitching in a new thing. I'm going back far enough, so I'm doing every single one here. Going in between each fringe and then to the end, going each one. You can do the last one twice if you want to, just to make sure it's really in there. Now, don't yank it because we want to re-break it, right? So now you can see it's like woven on there. You can't even tell. You can't even tell that it was patched. And then just cut off the end here. Now, you can use that patch on ones where I should have not fixed this. I should have done it for you. Where this broke halfway in between, and I patched it around here it broke. And then I just patched it going through the ends, the last few of one side, going through, and then patching it through and weaving it through the next, the other half of the broken bit. And again, you can't tell. In fact, it's probably stronger now. So now this one's good to go. Doesn't matter how, and I've got the really long, you don't obviously need 10 inches of it or whatever. I over wire over everything, which is why I'm always learning how to fix things, because I'm always busting things. So, but that's a good way to do it. Like, we're just as good as we were before. Good as new. Possibly even stronger. Don't know. Not going to test that right now because I don't want to. So let's start with the inner bits. Now, I'm going to be real gentle here because I had to dismantle this thing, which means that it's already gotten kind of kinked up once, so it's, let's hope for the best. So, I hold it down like maybe about, I don't know, half an inch, 3/4 of an inch. Start wrapping it up at this point until I get right at that tip, maybe about 1/8 of an inch down on that tip there. And then I start wrapping around. Now, you want to do a fairly tight one, but without breaking it. So be careful, and you want to do a wrap that's right up underneath each preceding row, each preceding like rotation. And you can kind of push up as you go so that you don't get tangled up. Now, I did my fringe in 2 units, so you could do it in 1. That would be a lot. That would be a pretty long piece of wire. You could do it 2, 3. I would avoid doing it 4. Now, once you get to the bottom, wrap that thing. Just keep it wrapped. Keep it going. Wrap her up. Okay, now I'm going to take this guy, the repaired one, make sure I'm paying attention. Again, normally these would be straight fringes, but I already did all my shaping because this poor thing was taken apart and put back together. So, make sure you're starting with your smaller, like the smaller, shorter fringe. And again, start a little bit down, hold it however 1 inch down, and then wrap up, push up to that bottom, wrap up to the bottom, and then, keep it as tight up to each preceding row as possible. And then I like to have a long tail end so I can do a lot of wrapping. I don't need it to be this long, though. This was really long. So we got our center bits there. And that already looks cute and fluffy. I'm loving it already. Look at that. I just want to make a little bouquet of just those. And you see how that tan kind of fits right in there. Now, if there's a little green in there in the middle, again, that's kind of a cute flower accent. That could happen too. So normally I would have a lot more fluffing to do right now, but I already fluffed. Try not to be grumpy at the fact that happened. But I'm not really. I realize that the lighting on this makes it look like this towel is not dirty. It's just shadowy because it's a very high nap terry cloth towel, which I like because then my beads don't bounce and fly around everywhere. They kind of land where they are and I can pick them up and use them if needed, like that. Okay, so you want to start in the middle, and you can actually shape as you go with each unit. I normally probably would. I was just trying to get things done, meaning like, I wrapped that first unit. I might have just shaped that. Now I want to do pliers just falling down everywhere. So I'm going to make a little sort of like kernel right in the middle. This is where reading glasses would be cool. Let's get them out so I can see. Okay, so a little kernel there right in the middle because we're going to close up over that center wire anyway. So we're going to make a little hard kernel with the contrasting color. If you got it, you can also do these monotone. And then choose like sort of the like first row or so. It does not have to be perfect. We don't want it to be. And close those up really tight. We're going to make that little kernel right in the middle. Now, you saw how cute it looked without that, so you can freeform this thing, Again, my videos aren't normally, they're like sort of like, I want you to figure out what makes sense to you, too. We're not doing the sort of, let's see, pull that up, and then pull that up, and make a little kernel right there. That's always kind of fun. Okay, now, so just kind of a tight one. It's like I did, let me see if I did it in this guy here. See how I did in this one too, this other 15 here. Oh, actually this is the 11s. So I did with the 11s, I sort of tightened this up and have that sort of little like kind of kernel there in the middle. And about the size of a kernel of corn. And then other things, you're just going to kind of bend them up. And for me, it's easier for me to do it with the forceps sometimes, but then you want gentle. Remember, you're not pinching with the forceps. I'm not even ever closing them. I'm just holding things. I'm just using it to hold. It's like only like doing this. Gentle with these things. Now, I got these forceps that I love for $6 off Amazon like 3 years ago. They're still going strong. Obviously, they've got some glue stuff stuck on the end because I probably use them to move around pebbles in an arrangement, but they're still kicking, even with the glue residue. So, using them to bend things up. Just, you can use needle nose pliers too, whatever you want to. Or if you have more agile fingers than me, then do your business. And you want it to look you want it to look fluffy, right? We want that fluff factor. That's kind of the impressive part that people are going to be like, oh, look at that cool center. You're going to be like, yeah, it's cool. It was so hard. And you're going to go, no, it was easy. Now, we got to uphold the mystique. You also want to make sure that, it's kind of evenly dispersed. That should happen as long as your actual fringe was evenly dispersed. Otherwise, just, kind of zhuzh things more if you feel like you need a little more there. Just like we did with the spider chrysanthemums. If you remember way back in the day, if I said it didn't look even, that's okay. Just zhuzh it over. And when I mean that, I mean gently, like this. Like just kind of brush with your fingers and kind of push, and that'll get a little bit more over to one side. And this is the profile we're looking for, right? Just something that looks like that, a little bit, and then that's cute, right? I love this little guy. I love this color. This is the same color that one of our group mates is doing her whole flower in. And it's the cream-lined, crystal, color-lined cream, or, gosh, I always forget the names. Okay, now, let's get on into business, because I want to make each one under half an hour. And we're already pushing 16 minutes. Okay, oh gosh. Okay. A little violet came along for the ride. Go back to where you belong. If you could see what I'm working with here, you'd be laughing. Okay, so pull out your 6 inner leaves. Leaves, I always say the wrong thing. Leaves, petals, you know what I'm trying to say. Make sure that they're what they're supposed to be, that you didn't mix them up. They're the ones that have the seam, the noticeable seam on the outer bit. Now, what I do too is I look at these and I go, okay, well, I'm going to kind of separate out like the ones that look tighter to me. Those are going to be the inner ring. So that looks pretty tight. It's more cuppy, right? So I'm looking for, and then that looks pretty tight. That doesn't look as tight as it could be, but maybe. This one looks pretty like looser. At this point, this is just pickiness, right? So I'd say that these are the tightest ones. It does, just by look, because I just want those to be in the inside. And I'm going to have to flatten this guy down. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be putting them together in 3x3. So we're going to do 3 first in an equilateral triangle formation so that they're equally spaced. And then we're going to put the other 3 in between. So now you can choose. I would just choose maybe a strong 30 gauge, even a 32 gauge. 32 gauge is a little weak. Unless I would probably, because you need that bolstering, I'd probably go with a 30. Now and something that kind of matches the petals, if you got it, I'm going to go with this bare copper. Again, actually, this is called natural. I want to be clear. We got to be careful that, I have to disclaimer these, it might, if you use bare copper, tarnish. I don't mind that. So don't use that unless you're okay with that. I have never had it tarnish, and I've had it on things that have been around for years. But disclaimer on that. Otherwise, just a plain gold or silver or whatever. Okay, so let's start. So I'm going to take the first one, and I'm just going to, put it right up next to one, and I'm going to do a pretty good wrap on this thing. And again, over wrapper. You can do less if you want to. I do that kind of flattening to make sure it's against the stem wire as much as possible. And then I'm going to put this one. Now, don't worry too much about placement, because things are going to get moved around. We're not going for perfection here. We're going for fluff, pretty factor, and personality. Okay. So I'm doing that one. And then I'm doing this one. So, again, don't get out your protractor or anything. Now, if you ever see that there's a little gap there, you can bring... This is me being uptight. You can totally ignore it, but I kind of flatten down onto the stem wire as I go. Be careful, though, because if you do that too hard, it can bust your wrapping wire. Now, right now, this is what we got, which already looks pretty, doesn't it? And let's do the next 3. So the next 3 inner petals are going to go in between those first 3. It's going to take a second, because every time I show it to you, I have to bend it and then flatten it and then so on and so forth. Okay, So we're going to put these guys in, and again, you want like a 90-degree kind of angle down here with your little, remember the rattan chair we were talking about? You have the little area where you're going to be kind of, we put your rear end there. So we want a 90-degree, and we're going to stick it right in there, right in between. Now again, don't get too work, and push them as much as you can with your thumb up to the base. You want to, like, we want a tight wrap here, and I'm going to do another few wraps around. And then I'm going to go over here, get this guy up. Put it nice up there. Another few. We just want it nice and tight. We want our petals to be stable because this is I'm warning you, this is a thick stemmed flower. Because, because it is. Because I'm wrapping a lot. If you want to wrap less, go ahead. Okay. And then this last one up on the bottom, last inner petal. Again, just doing a tight wrap. Get it in there. And this one's really sticking out, and that's bugging me. So I'm going to tamp it down a little bit up against that stem wire there, which sometimes makes this way it's being lashed on. I've never used that word before, lashed on. It's a very pirate word, right? Lashings. Okay, so this is what we got right now. And that's already pretty, right? You could kind of be like, oh, that's my poppy. Though I don't know if poppies, now, how funny is that? I forgot. Now, so you can already have like a really pretty flower. You could do a bunch of those for someone, and I don't think anyone would be disappointed. But we're going to make it even fluffier. Fluff factor. That's what we're going for. Okay, so let's get out our last, boom, bits there. And again, we're going to do 4x4 now. So you can look and see which ones look kind of tighter, and you can do those in the middle. And this is just, an aesthetic thing. So this looks tighter to me, like ones that look more cuppy. So again, it's not the end of the world. It's kind of an approximation here. And I'm feeling that these are, I feel like this one looks cuppier. There we go. So these will be my first round, and these will be my second round over here. So this app really makes it like close up. It's weird. Okay. Let's hope it works though. Otherwise I'm giving up. No, I don't give up that easy. I think one time with the Spider Mom one, I had to do one of the videos 3 times. Okay. So now with these, you're not going to go in between because obviously we have 4 in a round. So don't worry about that. Just get them on there. Just rotate around, do 4 and then do 4 again. So they're kind of doing like a square. It does not actually matter that much because you can actually later on, kind of bend them, move them a little bit. You can zhuzh them sideways. Now, obviously, you can't, put them on the other side of the flower, but you can get something going on. Okay, so this is very ungainly, having this bend in the stem wire. Okay, so then do another one kind of right next to it, just right where it, touches. And again, just wrapping her up. I'm normally a more elegant wrapper. That's probably a lie, but I feel like I'm normally... Let me see if I can get this bend out of it a little bit for right now. Okay. So, yeah, that helps. I'm already getting kind of a loose wrap on it. You can squish it all down. It's looser than I'd want it to be. Things are moving a little bit more than I'd want them to be right now because I'm messing with the stem wire so much. That will not be happening for you, hopefully. Okay, so again, I'm going to put this one right where the other ones are, so it's just touching the edge right there, just touching. And so that should make like a nice square once you get that first 4 down there. See, right? Don't worry how it matches up with the other 3. So look, here I'm putting the last of the first 4, and see how it just touches the first one, and the second one fits perfectly in there. Okay, so I'm going to do a little bit more. And then last but not least, now we are going to try to aim for these guys to be in between. Come on back now. What the heck just happened there? Oh my gosh. What mayhem can happen with beads and wire when you're not even paying attention. Okay, so again, just put them in between the previous 4. Like where they would meet, you're going to put a new one. And notice how I keep my thumb up here on the bottom, pushing that petal up and running the wire over top of my thumbnail. Okay, and then again, just touching. Don't worry if it's like right in between the other 2. Get the just touching thing is kind of more important just for moving it later. And I probably do like 5 wraps around. That's probably overkill. I'm sure it is. I've learned that my methods are pretty much always overkill, so, you know. Okay, so wrapping. And then the last one should fit right there. And it does perfectly. Look, touch, touch. I planned that. That's why these petals are the size they are. So, I planned for them just a touch like that. Now, that makes it sound like I'm so egotistical. Like, I meant that. Well, I did actually plan that. I will be honest. Okay, so now we got kind of a thick stem, but it's a nice, tightly wrapped, condensed, dense one, and I'm happy with it. It's going to be covered up, by the way, so we don't really care about the upper bits. They're going to be covered up by the little, you know, leaf skirt we're going to put on it. It's not quite a calyx. So, that's why I'm calling these center bits, too, because they're more than one type of center bit. So then at this point, I'm going to actually cut off a little bit just so it's easier for me to wrap. I can do it a little faster when we're not attached. So I just wrap it down just to keep a nice tight stem. I'm always putting my things in arrangements or vases, and there's lots of foliage, so I'm not really worried if the stem looks like smooth as it's never gonna, because there's a bunch of wires on it. So that's why it's never gonna look super smooth. So you want it as smooth as possible. Okay, so there we go. There's our flower. So like already you can see we've got this very pretty flower. If you want to move some petals around. Now, later on we're going to open it up, but for now, just so that you can, you know, kind of work with underneath, we'll leave it kind of closed up, but you can already see that we've got a very pretty flower here in the making. And you should be proud of yourselves because I bet yours looks just as good. And you can always use some after the fact shaping, but give it that personality, that sort of furling, that apple pie edge thing going on there. I don't know what. Where did the rattan chair come from? I don't know. Where did the apple pie edge come from? I don't know. But hopefully you know what I mean. Like that little crimping that you do when you make a pie edge. We're going to do a little crimping. So we got that. Now, next step. Let me flatten you down here again. Okay, so I'm going to put a little bit of stem floral tape on just on the base here, just to hold it together. And we're going to, it doesn't actually have to be a color you particularly care about because you're going to end up putting leaves on, these little bottom leaves on top of it. However, it just kind of keeps things together and makes it a little bit easier to affix those bottom leaves so they don't slip around on that wire. So as normal, get out your floral tape and give it a little, you know, stretch to activate that wax. And if you have a lighter green, all the better. Kind of hard to find a good lighter green. I got this. Where did I get it? If you guys are interested, I'll try to find it. It's actually, I think it was like a cake decorating supply place or something. But they had really cool colors, and they had actually 2 varieties of a light moss. So I have quite a few different greens. I think it's called, I put SD here. I think it's something like Sugar Delights or something. I don't know. Gotta look it up. I'll try to find it. Anyhow, so kind of a nice handy color to have. But otherwise, you just go for green. You know, greens are cool no matter what shade they are. So I'm going to wrap. This one's a little bit drier because it's kind of an older tape right now, so it's kind of dried out a bit. So that I don't like about it right now. Normally it's not. So I'm going to push it right up in there, and I'm actually wanting it to get a little bit like bunched up here because I'm trying to use its strength right now to bolster. So I'm using it underneath to kind of bolster up, and I'm pushing it up into underneath the petals as I twist. I'm using this to kind of strengthen and kind of, you know, hold things together. Okay, so, and we're not doing this to be pretty, by the way, because you're going to put leaves, you're never going to see this. So it's all about just kind of having that sort of thickness. There we go. Okay. And then eventually once you get like a 1/2 inch below it, you can flatten it down to regular again. And then just go maybe down a few inches, you know, maybe 3-4 inches, something like that. This is just a pre-wrap. I always kind of flip them upside down like this at this point, and I actually use the twisting and just hold the tape static, hold it stiff, and just twist the stem. And then you can go kind of faster and with less wrist issues. Okay, and again, it's a kind of a clunkier stem than I normally do because I keep unbending and bending it. You can probably do it much neater than me. So cut this off. This is probably about 5 inches down. Doesn't matter. This is just to kind of hold it together while we get everything else going. So the next video, we'll talk about the underbits and putting those on, putting those on. But you should already have a flower that you're like, wow, that's kind of a cool flower. Isn't it pretty? Because I'm kind of digging this one. I'm liking this deep peach with this ivory shiny inside. It's making me happy. Flowers in general, it's pretty hard to have a flower not make you happy. But I'm really liking this combo. So I'm glad that we're making them together. And I'm going to put them in an arrangement together with this guy. And they're going to look very pretty together, I think. So anyhow, see you next time for the bottom bits. The leaf skirt, as I'm calling it. Okay. Have fun with this one. And congratulations on your big puffy peony.